Hey guys, so today we are in the sixth part of the Ottoman Empire series about Mehmed II. If you want to watch the original video by Kings and Generals, the link is down in the description down below. And if you enjoy my content and you want to help me out in any way, shape, or form, feel free to please like, comment, and subscribe. It would really help me out a lot, and I would appreciate it very much. Now, with that said, and now without any further ado, let's get to it. Let us watch the sixth part of the Ottoman Empire Mehmed II series by Kings and Generals.
However, Mehmed's military triumphs were dampened when his beloved son, Shahzada Mustafa, fell ill and died the following year, shocking many in the government. The Ottoman prince had been the most promising of Mehmed's three sons, and had been groomed as a potential heir. Outraged by Mustafa's sudden
Oh, that sucks, dude. Yeah, it sucks a lot when you have, like, chosen heirs who just pass away. Mustafa proved his worth last video when he won a pretty won battles, so yeah, that sucks.
death, the Sultan blamed the tragedy on Mahmud Pasha. The Grand Vizier was first detained and stripped of his titles before being executed, a move that highlighted Mehmed's increased.
Okay, he was. I have comments about that, but first let me read this. Mahmud Pasha was executed for allegedly poisoning Mustafa, driven by a rumored affair between the prince and the pasha's wife. Mahmud's been through quite a lot. Last video he got demoted, he got reinstalled, and then like the false allegations against him and taking bribery was against him that apparently Mehmed believed, and now we have this, where he just gets straight up murdered. Again, driven by other allegations of poisoning, so he must have had an interesting character. So it seems like whenever allegations came up against him, Mehmed was quick to believe them, so I don't know. I'm not sure if that's telling of his character, or maybe Mehmed just wanted, I don't know. At least enough for Mehmed to believe them, so that must tell me that there's something maybe with his character, but again, if he is innocent, that sucks, dude. Like, that poor guy. If all those allegations were false, then this guy just got screwed over by whatever reason. Maybe I just didn't like him. Maybe I just didn't like the guy. I kid. I don't know their entire relationship, but, that's just all I'm gathering from these videos, and dang, if he was innocent, poor guy, you know.
Authoritarianism toward members of his own government. Mahmud's rival, Gedik Ahmed Pasha, may have also played a role in the vizier's rapid downfall, as he was soon hailed as Grand Vizier in 1474. Mahmud Pasha, the Ottoman statesman who loyally and dutifully served the Sultan over 2 decades in various military expeditions in the Balkans and Anatolia, was buried in Constantinople. After Skanderbeg's death back in 1468,
I want to invite you.
The Albanian revolt against the Ottomans had lost its central leader and driving force. The Albanian lord had successfully unified various nobles of his homeland and led a 25-year resistance that kept the Turks at bay through a combination of brilliant military tactics and forming alliances with Western European powers. Nevertheless, with Skanderbeg's death, the Albanian nobility lacked a unifying figure to lead its armies. Skanderbeg's son, John II Kastrioti, was too young and inexperienced to assume leadership, and none of the surviving noble families commanded the same respect or allegiance from the broader Albanian population. Nevertheless, local resistance efforts continued in the region, with limited Venetian backing from the Doge's strongholds in Shkodra, Durrës, and Lezhë. While Sultan Mehmed spent much of 1474 in his imperial palace due to recurring gout, he dispatched an army to the west to address the ongoing Albanian revolt. After being unable to capture Durrës back in 1467, the Sultan tasked Hadim Suleiman Pasha with besieging Shkodra to cut off aid to Albania from the north. Leading a provisional army of over 20,000, the Romanian Beylerbey marched across the Balkans in the spring and laid siege to the Venetian stronghold.
Alright, so Suleiman rose from a court eunuch to become governor general of the Ottoman Romalia,
By mid-May. Although its walls crumbled under heavy Ottoman artillery fire, the local garrison managed to hold out for several months. In the final assault in August alone, the Turkish forces suffered 3,000 casualties. As his losses mounted, and news of a Christian fleet approaching to relieve the siege arrived, the Ottoman Pasha withdrew his army from Shkodra to the great jubilation of the Venetians. However, instead of returning to the imperial capital, Suleiman received new orders from Mehmed II to muster a fresh army and march towards the Danube, as a new threat arose in the distant lands of Moldavia.
Again, Albania's still holding on. I thought they would surely kind of fall apart immediately after Skanderbeg's death, but good on them for still putting up resistance.
Like its sister state of Wallachia, the Principality of Moldavia was founded in the mid-14th century amid the decline of Mongol dominance in Eastern Europe and the weakening of the Kingdom of Hungary's eastern frontier. Around 1345, Dragos of Maramuresh, a Vlach noble, was sent by the Hungarian crown to establish a border march against Tatar incursions in the east. He succeeded in creating a realm, marking the beginning of Moldavia as a political entity. Soon after Dragos's death, his successors were expelled by Bogdan I, a rival voivode who had rebelled against Hungarian authority and asserted Moldavian independence around 1359. Under him and his successors, Moldavia evolved into a principality, with its own institutions, military and royal dynasty. The realm's territory stretched between the Carpathians and the Dniester River, encompassing key trade routes to the Black Sea. Nevertheless, by the late 14th century, Moldavia was forced to contend with the influences of Hungary, Poland and the rising Ottomans, all of whom coveted its vital Black Sea port towns of Akerman and Kilia. Much like Wallachia, the Principality served as a crucial buffer state for all three during the 15th century. By 1451, Bogdan II of Moldavia was murdered and usurped by his brother Peter III, who became an official vassal of Poland, while also paying an annual tribute to the Ottomans. However, Bogdan's son, Stephen, received support from the Hungarian armies of John Hunyadi. Along with his cousin, Vlad III Dracula, he reclaimed the throne from his relative by 1457. The new ruler continued to pay tribute to the Ottomans and used the peace to reform his realm. He expanded and professionalized the army, creating a standing force of mercenaries and enhancing the mobilization of peasant levies. The power of the Vlach nobility was also curtailed, as new judicial laws and tax codes were enacted to promote central control from the capital of Suceava. In 1462, the opportunistic Stefan III supported Ottoman armies during their war against Wallachia to recapture Kilia.
Dang.
This goal was achieved by 1465, allowing Stefan to gain control over the strategic Danube delta.
Yeah, I keep forgetting that, like, Stefan and Vlad were actually related. But dang. Again, you gotta do what you gotta do for his own, territory. But, wow. I did not know he... No, we did cover that. Never mind. Sorry. Memory.
Observing that Moldavia was beginning to re-establish itself as a regional player under their ambitious ruler, the King of Hungary, Matthias Corvinus, invaded the country in 1467. There, the Hungarian monarch faced a humiliating defeat at the Battle of Baia,
Oh, wow.
losing up to 10,000 men and sustaining injuries himself.
Dang.
The victorious Stefan followed up on his significant
Yeah, I think Stefan has the moniker of the Great, which it'll be interesting because when I hear someone with that moniker or that epithet, I often think of, like, you know, like winners and whatnot, like Alexander, Catherine, Frederick. So I mean, granted, there have been losers who've had that title in terms of, like, Hanno II. Who I don't think deserves that title, but that's just me. And I guess Antiochus the third, who lost every major battle of his career and then died and sent the Seleucid Empire back. Yeah, Antiochus was the most disappointing historical figure of 2025. Like, when we covered the Roman conquest of Greece, I was so disappointed in Antiochus. I expected much more. But okay, I'm sorry. He holds the title of the most disappointing person. And I even argued he probably doesn't deserve the grade, but point is, I'm wondering if Stefan's gonna live up to that title. So far, that's a pretty good start off the bat. Very shrewd. He has to play multiple sides though. Like Romania, Wallachia, Moldavia is in the center of all these greater powers, and anytime, like when we covered the Michael the Brave series, when he tried to establish, like, these empires as powerful, they got jumped not only by the Ottomans but by the Christian forces because they didn't want a new power, situated here. They want to keep Moldavia, Wallachia, these Romanian principalities weak as buffer states and vassals. So their situation is where they're situated in between all these various great kingdoms and empires is like the biggest disadvantage, and they gotta do what they gotta do to try to hold on to any independence that they can. Very much the ultimate underdog story here.
By raiding Transylvania and thwarting a Great Horde invasion at Lipnitz over the next 4 years.
Dang.
It was also during this period that his former exiled rival, Peter III, attempted to seize the Moldavian throne alongside the forces of Radu III of Wallachia. Ultimately, both attempts were unsuccessful.
Wow.
By the early 1470s, the relationship between Mehmed II and Stefan had begun to deteriorate, as the Sultan insisted that Kilia be returned to Wallachian control. While Ottoman armies were engaged in Anatolia against Uzun Hasan, Stefan III terminated his tributary status with the Sublime Porte and invaded Wallachia in the fall of 1473. The strongly pro-Ottoman Radu III was defeated in battle and replaced by his Daneshti relative Basarab III. However, by the end of the year, Radu reclaimed his throne with the support of Mihalolu Ali Bey and 17,000 Akinji raiders, who plundered the local countryside as the new year approached. Yet the reign of the Impaler's brother was not destined to last long, as by the spring of 1474, Basarab regained power once again with Moldavian assistance. With Wallachian politics...
Yeah, Radu, bro. It definitely... He got his butt kicked multiple times, holy crap.
Once again in turmoil, and the loyal Radu III deposed, Mehmed sent Stefan an ultimatum. The Moldavian king would either pay his annual tribute, pay homage to the Sultan in Constantinople, and cede Kilia to the empire immediately, or face the wrath of the Ottoman armies. By the summer of 1474, the Sultan received his response from the Moldavian voivode, a staggering refusal of all conditions. Shortly thereafter, official war was declared, and orders were sent to Hadim Suleiman Pasha to march on Moldavia. The Rumelian Bey Bey spent the rest of the year gathering reinforcements for his war-weary army in Sofia. Although it was long past the campaigning season, Suleiman managed to assemble around 30 to 40,000 troops for the Moldavian War. This provincial force consisted of Azips, Janissaries, Akinjis, Tamali Sipahi heavy cavalry, and a number of Bulgarian engineers, tasked with clearing out roads and bridges of the local region. With Turkish troops gathering so close to his borders, Basarab III reverted his realm's status to that of an Ottoman vassal, and also pledged a contingent of Wallachian cavalry for Suleiman's war effort. As a result, the pathway into Moldavia was opened to the Ottomans.
Dang, you gotta do what you gotta do, like... Again, like, Wallachia's been a really interesting place in the rise of the Ottomans, is that under, like, competent people like Mircea or, like, Vlad the Impaler, handed a lot of casualties to the Ottomans and were pretty great at guerrilla warfare, but, again, there's only so much you can take, right? Like, in terms of manpower and just, it definitely can't go on forever, so... Again, you gotta do what you gotta do to survive. Like, just keep turning with the tide just so people leave you alone, right?
While Stefan was able to gather around 20,000 troops for the upcoming war. Half of his army consisted of peasant conscripts, mobilized from the countryside, and the regular Moldavian army, which included professional infantry, light and heavy boyar cavalry, and 20 cannons. The other half of the army consisted of foreign auxiliaries and mercenaries from neighboring Christian kingdoms, including 5,000 CK infantry, 2,000 Polish cavalry, 1,800 Hungarian infantry, cavalry and handgunners, and lastly 1,000 Wallachian volunteers.
I must say, like, I'm actually more surprised by the very diverse cavalry contingent he has here. Hmm.
By November 1474, Suleiman began crossing the frozen Danube in 2 columns from Vidin and Nicopolis. Regardless, the weather had already turned for the worse, slowing the Ottoman host's march north. Recognizing that his men were cold and exhausted, Suleiman rested his troops for over 2 weeks near Bucharest, where he received reinforcements from Basarab's promised contingent of 10,000 Wallachians. By December, the Turkish forces entered Moldavia, but Stefan was prepared and utilized scorched earth tactics.
The scorched earth, dude. One of the most, probably the most effective tactic I've seen on this channel. Like I said, I'm sure you could probably point at a time where maybe someone found a way to negate the effects of it. I'm just speaking for all the videos we've seen on this channel. I've never seen it countered. And it's been used a lot against a lot of great armies, from like Napoleon to the Karelians of Sweden, and, you know, against the Ottomans. Like, anytime this is used, it starts to heavily affect the opposing enemy advancing army. Like, I've never seen it countered on this channel, you know, from all the videos we've seen. So it is a desperate tactic for sure, but it's probably the most effective and the one I've never seen countered. So, yeah.
To confront the invaders. Hundreds of villages were burned, their wells poisoned, and their local inhabitants relocated to create supply issues for the far more numerous Ottoman army. This was a war of attrition, and Stefan was accustomed to battling superior opponents, continually harassing the Ottomans with his hit-and-run tactics, reminiscent of those employed by his cousin Vlad the Impaler.
Yeah, that's what I was saying. I'm like, dude, he's like fighting exactly like Vlad did. Probably not as brutal with the impaling, though. Like, Vlad was definitely pushed the violence and brutality to the extreme. I mean, who knows? Maybe not Mehmed. Maybe Stefan might actually be brutal too, like that. But either way, like, very, very similar. It's basically a repeat. You know, now that Mehmed has gout, it doesn't seem like he's gonna be there personally. It seems like he's getting more used to just sending other people to deal with trouble now. And it makes sense. His health is not the best, so... Like, I'm wondering if that's gonna get more increasing, because there are times in the series where he just chilled in Constantinople and sent other armies under other pashas to, you know, deal with whatever he needed to deal with, only coming when all else failed. So I'm wondering if that's going to keep increasing and we're going to see less of him in the battlefield, which again, gout, illness, like, I don't blame him for not being there. I'm just saying, like, I'm wondering if that's going to, like, be a point, there's going to be a point where he just can't anymore, like, lead. Yeah.
After nearly a month of marching through the abandoned countryside in freezing conditions, Turkish scouts sighted a few dozen intact villages in a valley.
Yeah, moving in winter, it seems like winter. I'm surprised he's moving in this weather. Usually armies don't, like, make major moves during the winter, you know what I mean? Kind of like there's a campaigning season. And for good reason, too. We've seen winter wars and battles and how brutal they are. That's why most armies in history usually decided not to be active during the winter, like, or, you know. It is winter, right? It seems like it. Forgive me if I'm wrong, and maybe I missed it, but if it is, then this seems, yeah, this seems, very dangerous for the Ottomans to kind of already be in unfamiliar territory against a foe who's experienced in battling larger armies, in the winter. Like, I feel like they're, you know, there's a lot. Maybe they don't have the luxury of waiting. I don't know if maybe it would allow that, but it does seem like it's definitely a lot more danger they're putting themselves in, you get me?
The Barlat River flows south of the town of Vaslui. With heavy fog, rain, and frigid temperatures plaguing his men, Suleiman decided to rest his army in the supply-rich region before continuing his march northward to the Moldavian capital. However, as the Ottoman troops began to cross the river over the only bridge in the area, Moldavian battle drums were heard in the north. Convinced that Stefan's entire army was ahead, Suleiman hastily advanced his troops through the dense fog and ordered the army to assemble on the western side of the river. As the drum roll continued, more Ottoman soldiers crossed the river and moved through the marshes to the north, forming a makeshift battle formation. Regardless, this brought the exhausted and now panicked Turkish host into a narrow valley, from which showers of arrows rained upon them.
Smart. I love that use of like the sound to like get them moving. Wow.
Situated at the end of the marshland was the Moldavian army, fortified behind earthworks and trenches. As the Ottoman front lines finally came into contact with Stefan's regular army and troops from Poland, Hungary and Transylvania, a bloody hand-to-hand melee ensued over the highly fortified positions on the marshland. Hearing the news of the struggle, Suleiman Pasha, stationed at the rear of the army and unable to assess the situation on the front lines, ordered a general advance and began rushing men across the small wooden bridge. Unbeknownst to him, he had just led his army into a trap.
Wow.
As reinforcements crossed the river, Moldavian cannon fire and barrages from the handgunners had begun to bombard the Turkish host from the opposite side of the river.
Dang.
The now panicked Suleiman began rushing his heavy cavalry across the wooden bridge, and this, combined with cannon fire, ultimately caused the unsturdy bridge to collapse.
Is Barabbas about to turn on that? Like, we're kind of leading over here that he's a popped on the frame. Like, he joined just to get the Ottomans off his back, obviously, but like, now that maybe if he's realizing that the situation's turning and he's in the rear, trapped with this, the more meager of the host, since it's divided between the bridge. Oh, it looks like the bridge is destroyed, but this would be a good opportunity for a heel turn, as in wrestling terminology, or would it be a? I don't know, this is a bit complicated. I guess it depends how you view the Ottomans. But heel, face turn, whatever. Just point is to attack.
Turkish reinforcements now attempted to cross the freezing cold river. The Wallachian contingent refused to do so, leading to significant tensions within the Ottoman army mid-battle. A fierce war of words caused Basarab to withdraw his support for Suleiman, thereby initiating his withdrawal from the battle.
Wow. I thought he was gonna like attack, but like that still is turning on him though, and just like not doing anything.
Meanwhile, back on the front lines, the Ottoman Sipahis were successful in pushing the left wing of the Sikeas and the Moldavian professionals. However, this lured the army further into the grasp of Stefan. Suddenly, the Moldavian war drums were heard from the forest to the left of the Ottoman line. Completely exposed, Ottoman officers panicked. Having never been made fully aware of the tactical situation, Suleiman tried to form a secondary line to defend against the threat on his left side.
Dude, the use of war drums, very unique. We haven't seen sound utilized like this so far in this channel, so this is a very unique situation. Wow.
Nevertheless, the main Moldavian attack was planned against the
Oh my gosh!
As the heavy boyar cavalry of Stefan, which had been hidden behind a forested hill until then, charged into the rear and flank of the Ottoman host.
Oh my goodness, dude, he thought of everything, separating them, using the war drums, disorienting and confusing his enemy, this hidden attack. Dude, he thought of everything. Holy crap, Stefan.
Despite still outnumbering their opponents, the now exhausted Turkish host thought that they were surrounded from three sides and began routing en masse. The battle had now turned into a massacre, in which individual Ottoman units fled the battlefield in all directions.
In our time, Stefan III, is the first among the princes of the world to win a great victory over the Turks.
3-day great retreat, the remains of Suleiman's host were run down by Moldavian cavalry, resulting in many Ottoman officers being taken captive and then executed. The Battle of Vaslui would become one of the most significant defeats in Ottoman history. The Sublime Porte suffered up to 20,000.
Oh my goodness. Dang, those casualties though. Dude, they got wrecked. Suleiman got clapped.
Casualties during the battle, compared to Stefan's 5,000. Like Skanderbeg before him, the Moldavian ruler was anointed by the Pope with the title of Athletic Christi for his great victory over the Turks. However, such a victory was to be celebrated only briefly, as in the following months after the battle, Stefan would conclude an alliance with Hungary, knowing that Mehmed's wrath would soon be at the gates of his realm. By the spring of 1476, Sultan Mehmed had recovered from his bout of gout and planned to personally march on Moldavia to take revenge for the Battle of Vaslui. Like Germanicus avenging the fallen Roman legions at the Teutoburg forest, the Ottoman Sultan aimed to restore the honor of his armies in the upcoming war. Gathering a force of 40,000 in Sofia, the Sultan marched along the Black Sea coast and reached the Danube in early summer. While it took the army over 3 days to cross the Great River, Mehmed's Tatar allies from Crimea also invaded Moldavia from the east. Nevertheless, they were routed near Ottoman by Stefan's forces and pushed out of the country entirely, thus thwarting Mehmed's plan to open a second front in the war.
Dang.
Like
Yeah, just
a half earlier, the Moldavian voivode intended to employ scorched earth tactics and attrition warfare against a numerically superior foe.
I'd be surprised if Hungary actually does anything. I feel like anytime anyone makes alliances with Hungary or the Papal States in this series, they never actually help. So I'm not even sure like Stefan should have even worried too much. I mean, granted, this might finally be the time where Hungary actually kind of commits, but I don't see them. Like, who knows, maybe. But like, I feel like so far that's kind of been the trend of this series. Like the Papal States and Hungarian alliances never really materialize into anything lasting or meaningful, so I don't know.
However, Mehmed did not repeat the mistakes of the previous expedition and marched cautiously through the region to ensure the safety of his supply lines. As the Ottoman army advanced towards Suceava through the White Valley, also known as Valea Alba, they finally encountered Stefan's host of 12,000. The Turkish vanguard, led by none other than Hadim Suleiman Pasha himself, was ambushed by the Moldavian ruler and suffered heavy losses. It was only with the arrival of the main Ottoman army that the Rumelian Beylerbey's contingent was saved, forcing Stefan to retreat to his camp. Due to the fact that he had not been reinforced with troops from Poland and Hungary, as had been the case the previous year, the voivode decided to go on the defensive and allow the invaders to attack his fortified line, which was located behind a forest. The next day, Mehmed ordered a general advance of his army, but this resulted in a great blunder, as the forest through which the army passed was set ablaze by the Moldavians, resulting in many casualties to the Ottoman host. During this panic, the army was also showered with incoming fire from Moldavian handgunners and artillery from ahead. It was only when the Sultan arrived on the front lines and rallied his officers and janissaries that morale in the Ottoman army resurged. Now being overwhelmed by his opponent's numbers on all sides, Stefan withdrew his host from the battlefield in order to prepare for the siege of his capital. Although Mehmed had secured a victory at the Battle of Valea Alba, it had come at a heavy cost. Between 5,000 and 10,000 Ottomans had been killed or wounded during the course of the battle.
Dang, still a lot of casualties though. Wow.
Compared to only around 1,000 Moldavians. Due to these high losses and plague now roaming the local countryside, the Sultan was unable to follow up on his victory.
The video feels out of sync right now. I don't know, this section has been weird. The name White Valley is said to originate from the bones of the fallen, which whitened the battlefield for decades afterwards. Wow.
Over Stefan, who had fled to the Polish border to reassemble his strength. Unable to seize the primary fortresses of the region, such as Kilia, Ottoman and Suceava, Mehmed concluded his campaign by the end of the summer, but not before ravaging the entirety of Moldavia. Although now left in ruins, Stefan's realm managed to survive Mehmed's onslaught and maintain its independence.
I chose him.
With Ottoman armies now gone from the local region, King Matthias ordered his vassal, Stefan Batory of Transylvania, to invade Wallachia alongside the Moldavians to restore Vlad to his throne. By the fall of 1476, Basarab III had lost his throne once again. However, in a demonstration of the volatility of Wallachian politics, he managed to regain power by the start of 1470.
Yeah, Wallachia is just one revolving door of people. Oh man, yeah. This is where Vlad dies. Not too long after.
27 with Ottoman support. During this struggle, Vlad was cornered at the town of Snegov and was beheaded by Turkish agents.
Ooh.
The head of the Impaler Prince was soon sent to Mehmed, where it was placed upon a high stake for all to see in the imperial capital. 15 years after his initial campaign of terror in the Balkans, Vlad III Dracula had finally been defeated and killed, representing a significant propaganda victory for Sultan Mehmed II. With Wallachia secured and Moldavia on the back foot, Mehmed now turned his gaze to his wars elsewhere in the Balkans.
Yeah, very anticlimactic, his third reign right there. Just, it ended really quick for Vlad, unfortunately. But still, very interesting video, what's going on in Moldavia and whatnot. I'm wondering where Mehmed goes from here, though. And I guess that's for me to find out next video, huh? I'll see you guys tomorrow when we cover more.